Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the Keep Indiana Learning live stream. So whether you're joining us live for the live or for the replay, we're just really happy to have you here. So please don't hesitate to like or comment or share. We'd love to see it on social media. My name is Samantha Priya, and I am a former educator. I taught for 5 years in California, Arizona, and South Korea. And now I work with the Modern Classrooms Project. So the Modern Classrooms Project is partnered with Keep Indiana Learning. That's why I'm here. We're two like-minded organizations that are really dedicated to supporting educators. The Modern Classrooms Project is a nonprofit that is providing professional development and ongoing support to educators to help them implement self-paced, personalized, and mastery-based learning in their own classrooms. We've partnered with Keep Indiana Learning to provide support to Indiana educators completely free of charge. But before I get into that any further, I would like to show you a quick video that can describe a modern classroom a little bit better than I ever could. So
Tell me if this has happened to you. You come to school one day, the teacher's at the board, and it's time for the lesson. Except you were homesick yesterday. So when the teacher starts talking, you're not sure what they're talking about. You're lost. Or maybe you learned this last year. So when the teacher explains what you already know, you're bored. Or maybe you're just having a bad day. It happens. The teacher's talking, but you can't focus. You're distracted. And meanwhile, the teacher's not sure what to do. The teacher is stressed. But what if your teacher steps down from the front of the room? If you are sick, you don't have to worry. Your teacher's lessons are on video, so you can pick up right where you left off. This isn't from YouTube, by the way. Your teacher made the video, and you're watching them explain. So you're not lost anymore. You're engaged. And if you already know the content, you can move ahead and do an extension activity. You can work on this with your classmates. Now you aren't bored anymore. You're challenged. And if you're having a bad day, the teacher has time to sit with you. They can ask what's wrong and help you feel better. You aren't distracted anymore. You feel supported. And by the way, your teacher realizes that they can meet your needs. And they can feel successful. We call this a modern classroom. Welcome! In a modern classroom, you'll notice 3 new things. First, your teacher is creating videos for you. You can watch these videos in class or at home. You can pause, rewind, rewatch, or skip ahead if you get it. These don't replace your teacher, they just clone your teacher so that they can support you individually. Next, you'll learn at your own pace. When you get things quickly, you move ahead quickly. When you need more time, you'll have the time you need. This means you'll learn as much as you can without being rushed or held back. Finally, you're really going to learn things. In fact, you'll master them. You won't move to lesson 2 until you really understand lesson 1. So when you learn something new, you're really going to learn it. After all, you're too capable for anything less than true understanding. So that's a modern classroom for you. Now what are you waiting for? Let's learn!
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video. That's a modern classroom at a glance. But really our goal is just to build classrooms that respond to every student's needs. So that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this work. And really our goal is that you have the support that you need to build a classroom like that of your own. So I'd like to take you through just a couple slides here to show you what the Modern Classrooms Project impact could be for your students and for you, and then give you a little bit more information on this opportunity from Keep Indiana Learning that is specifically for Indiana educators. So let's dive in. So the research from Johns Hopkins shows that our model helps students become more self-directed learners. They're able to get caught up more quickly after absences and enjoy learning more. But not only that, our research is showing a huge impact on educators as well. The model is helping them to feel more effective, more data-driven, and more data-informed in their approach. I don't know about you all, but for me, when I was in my teacher prep program, as well as when I was in a classroom of my own, I really struggled with using data to inform my instruction. It felt like the data that I had was often tied to standardized tests. And standardized tests are great in that they provide some high level data, but they don't really provide student specific data. And I really felt like I needed that information in order to change my instruction to better support students. And while I could always use my own exams, looking at an exam of like, a student got a 28 out of 30, well, it just wasn't super helpful. And that unless I'm breaking that down by like what question exactly did each student get wrong, and then going back and reteaching students individually, I just wasn't able to really tailor instruction to them. And I know that we're all very painfully aware of the teacher shortage and the many, many things around education that are going into that. And the early data shows that this model is helping to retain teachers and help them find more enjoyment in their day-to-day work. So I think that's really, really powerful. And I'd like to show you just a little bit more of what this model entails. So first, we all know the traditional model of a teacher standing in the front of the room, teaching the same thing to all 30 or 40 of their students who have just a variety of different experiences and needs. And instead of following that same model, a modern classroom helps educators step down from the front of the room and meet students where they're at. So instead of being that sage on the stage, you're really able to step down and become the guide on the side, like a true facilitator of student learning, which I think is really the goal. Most people I know as educators, they're not looking to have everybody listen to them all the time. They want students to discover and find ways of learning themselves. They don't always want to have to be the person who's pushing students forward and pushing students to learn. Instead, they want their students to find a way forward and learn how to problem solve themselves. So this is really kind of providing that framework for students to be able to do that. So as you might have seen in the video, this model is kind of based on 3 different high-level ideas. The first is blended instruction. So students watch short teacher-created videos. These are only like 5 or 6 minute videos at most. And then they pair those activities with, they pair those videos with activities that students can then use to reinforce their learning. And then at the end of the lesson, students take a mastery check in order to check their understanding. And students who have mastered that content, they move on to the next lesson. And students who haven't, they go back and they revise their understanding. They maybe deepen their learning with other lessons or other activities. And then they come back and they take that mastery check again. So they're given opportunities to really revise their understanding and address those misunderstandings in real time. It's very cool. So I'd like to show you what each of these facets look like in practice. So first, let's talk through blended instruction. I'd mentioned this before, but teachers create instructional videos. Don't let that scare you off. I know that if you're not the most tech savvy, or if you're certainly not comfortable being recorded and hearing your voice back on 30 different Chromebooks, that might be an uncomfortable space to be. But giving your students the power of pause and rewind to be able to go back and say, like, wait, what was it that she just said? Instead of turning to a neighbor or tuning out because they missed like what was a really key component of your lesson, that's really powerful for them. It puts learning in their hands and it helps them to take ownership there. The video that we have here embedded on the slide, if you're just listening and you're not watching, it's a video from a kindergarten class. One of our teachers in Pennsylvania created this, and it's about combining sets. And she explores this really basic concept of students at a party and how we need to figure out if we have enough food for all the students at the party. And so she walks them through counting the students and counting the food, and then asking questions to the students who are listening and saying, do we have enough sandwiches for all 10 students? And so even though it's for kindergarten, it's going through this really basic concept in a way that is easy enough to understand for kindergarten students, but also supporting them with questions that pop up mid-lesson using Edpuzzle. It's a really cool concept that allows students to revise their understanding in real time. And then they can continue to go back to that when they forget or when they need more reinforcement. Another component is that self-paced structure. Don't let self-pacing scare you just because, maybe you'd like to have a little bit more control in your classroom. I know myself as an educator, I was a bit of a control freak. I like to know, what my students are working on and when, and be able to say like, you're on task or you're not on task. But one of the big challenges was if students missed a day, they missed the entire instruction. They missed the lesson. And going back and supporting them was a real challenge. A kid coming in and asking, well, I was absent. Did we do anything? We did. Yes, in fact, we did. But taking time out of working with the entire class to help one student who was absent it felt impossible. Or I could only give that student a small fraction of my time. So a self-paced structure really does allow students to pick up right where they left off. If they were absent that day, they know, they come in the next day, and they just pick up right exactly where they left off. Students who are distracted, they have that power of pause and rewind, but also, they're able to crowdsource understanding in a way that they really can't in a regular classroom. Where, in a regular classroom, we discourage students from just turning and talking to their neighbor because it feels like they might be off task. Being in a self-paced environment means that they can actually use their peers as support to stay on pace. Or they can work and they can try to keep up with their peers so that they're able to work together. The other component of self-pacing here is lesson classification. So in my regular classroom, I thought of everything as a must-do. Everything was essential, right? But there were always these projects that I wanted to get to and just couldn't. I didn't have the time. Or, it was like, oh, one of these days we're going to be able to do this really cool project I have in mind around World War II. But then never really got to it because we were constantly going back and revisiting basic foundational topics, right? So this allows you to classify your lessons as must do, should do, and aspire to do. And so those lessons that are must do, those are the basics. Students have to complete those before they're able to take the mastery check or before we're allowed to complete the unit. Those things that are should do, it's like, this is nice to do, but not 100% required. And the last one is aspire to do, right? And so these are the ones like you really want to shoot for, but if you don't make it to it, it's not a big deal. I've seen educators use lesson classification as a personalization tool. So you're able to, work with students one-on-one and say, you know what, this lesson, you don't need to do this one. I'd like you to focus in on, this must-do assignment because this is the most important. And then that way you're able to work with students who may be falling behind and say, like, just focus on this core. Whereas students who have already mastered that content are already like way far ahead. Well, you've got enrichment activity for them to do that helps them deepen their understanding and maybe broaden it as well. Also, we encourage these pacing trackers. So pacing trackers, they can be fancy, they can be very basic, but really the goal is to provide students with a visual understanding of where they're at within the unit. That's it. And so as students go through, we're able to say, like, you're on this roadmap. This is what learning looks like at a glance. And oftentimes I've seen educators, with a super basic pacing tracker of, the students' names are up on the board. The students whose names are highlighted, those are students who need to come in and check in with you at the beginning of the class. The students, and then every other student has their name listed on a lesson. And that way they're able to see, this is the lesson I should be working on today. And everyone else who's in this group is someone I'm allowed to collaborate with. How cool is that? And then the last piece here is mastery-based grading. So this element of focus on mastery, right? It's not a focus on achieving an A so much as it is achieving understanding. For me, I was probably what most people would identify as a grade chaser. I cared very much about getting the A, but I didn't really care so much about like, did I understand or did I learn or did my understanding evolve? And I often felt like I hadn't learned as much as I could have as a result. And so focusing in on, did you master the content or not? And if you didn't, let's revise. Let's revise until we do. And giving students that opportunity to reassess until they've updated their understanding and resolved some of their misunderstandings. Okay, so all of this information is something that you can access in our free online course. It's readily available to any educator anywhere in the world, and all of the content and the tutorials are there. However, we're working with Keep Indiana Learning on just a really cool opportunity that's going to bring this professional development, a more robust version of this professional development to educators across Indiana. And that's this virtual mentorship program that we're doing throughout the year and also throughout the summer. So, like I said, Modern Classrooms Project has partnered with Keep Indiana Learning to bring educators the support they need to transition to student-centered learning. So this partnership allows us to bring just a really unique learning opportunity through the Virtual Summer Institute. It's a 5-week intensive course, and it's just a professional development opportunity that's going to guide you through creating those self-paced, mastery-based blended learning for your classroom that you can actually use in the fall. You're going to be creating lessons that you can actually use as opposed to, things that you would think about in theory. Now, not only are you going to be creating like usable content, you're going to be partnered with a mentor who is an educator themselves. So they've implemented a modern classroom of their own, and they can guide you every step of the way. They've been in your shoes of trying something new and not totally knowing what you're doing, feeling like you're kind of making it up as you go along. And so that mentor can really help you think through the unique circumstances of your classroom, the unique needs of your classroom, and how you can tailor the model to those needs. So if you're interested in applying for something like that, we would recommend that you sign up at www.modernclassrooms.org/Indiana. You can apply for the scholarship there. And once you do, you'll get information on the Summer Institute program, how you can get paired with a mentor, and all of the really cool opportunities around the Summer Institute. It's just like it's like joining a club for the summer. You're not only going to have access to your mentor, but you're going to have these intensive webinar series, around trauma-informed teaching or improving your professional practice, and just like targeted synchronous and asynchronous opportunities to learn more. There's also going to be social hours. So these are like regional social hours where you can connect with educators in your region and be able to crowdsource best practices across your state, across your region, just like really fun stuff. So that's kind of a look at Summer Institute and the virtual mentorship program at a glance. Session 2 is getting very full. I just found out we've only got 200 slots left for session 2. So if you're looking to do it in that mid-June to mid-July timeframe, apply stat. They're like extending the enrollment so that we can hopefully take in a few more educators. But yeah, I would apply very, very soon. Otherwise, that late summer, mid-July through mid-August session is open. So apply at that modernclassrooms.org/Indiana, and you can make that happen for you. Yes, it's also on the bottom of the screen here if you're a visual learner. But ultimately, that's kind of a look at the Modern Classrooms project and the opportunity for this summer. I want to thank everybody here for joining me and for learning a little bit more about what we're about here. It's just been a pleasure to connect with Indiana educators and to be able to share with you just a little bit of what we do and why. I've really enjoyed this time. So thank you for joining us for this Keep Indiana Learning live stream. Definitely like, share, subscribe, do all of the social media things. We love to see it. And mostly, like, if you'd like to learn more about the Modern Classrooms project, You can always visit our website, www.modernclassrooms.org. You can also see a live Modern Classroom on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter at Modern Class Proj, Proj. So follow along and keep learning. Ultimately, thank you all for joining us, and I hope that you have a great Teacher Appreciation Week. You deserve it, and